Welcome to Akhand Vidyashram, the first institute of impeccable wisdom. Let's discuss what Rig Veda, the science of vital minerals, and the descent of divine chemistry. I'm sure you are surprised why I have used the word Rig Veda and also the minerals and also the divine chemistry. Let me make one thing very clear to you. To the best of my understanding, Rig Veda talks about atom, element, molecules, compounds of the mineral kingdom primarily. The most important part of Rig Veda is Agni Bhuta or fire element, which stands out completely. At the same time, you are talking of atoms, elements, molecules, fire, Vayu, Akash, all the five concepts are spoken beautifully in that. As a matter of fact, the fact of Shunya, zero, appears in Rig Veda only as a Nisidya from which everything is operated, is maintained as a thing. I have already explained that. From there, all the elements have come, and some of the most important vital elements which Rig Veda talks about it, how you are going to understand divine chemistry one by one, from which entire universe has appeared, from elementary to inorganic to organic to biochemistry to the perfect human beings, as even as a consciousness otherwise. Everything starts from Rig Veda. Yantra, Mantra, Tantra, all the three are found in Rig Veda. The most important concept of entire universe and spiritual science is there in Rig Veda itself, and it is called Shruti. The Brahmins who wrote, composed Rig Veda are the ones who were in tune with universal consciousness. They knew Nirankar, Nirgun Brahman very clearly. They knew Sakar, Sargun Brahman very clearly. They knew Anubhav Brahman also very clearly. Entire universe was heard by them, directly heard, experience in mantra, yantra and tantra form, and gave it to the world. And to add the fourth dimension of Ganit Vidya, the divine mathematics, is something which I am more focused on. At the end, the perfection can come only in divine mathematics, that too in Divyank and nothing other than that. In the light of Divyank, how things have come is what I am trying to explain A to Z, to bring uniform knowledge, Agyan to Gyan to Vigyan to Pragyan to Akhandata systematically in the light of Divyank, and show this is the most important divine design of nature, knowing which everything is known, and that's it. Everything is connected with Divyank, Divyank and Divyank alone. Now come to the question of bringing spirituality of Ved, Upanishads on one side and modern science other side. Both are looking for the truth and nothing other than truth, and they are looking at the perfection from A to Z. Now, most concise, precise definition of Rig Veda is there in periodic table itself. And this is what I want to bridge together and make it as a spiritual science. You can understand both, which look in the opposite direction, are actually integral part of the same being. In that connection, I call the periodic table as a divine periodic table, is a perfect way and to the whole universal consciousness. Now let's understand the fundamental concepts in Rig Veda to this level. The first vital element which I understand is hydrogen and helium, and I call hydrogen is the most important monovalent atom, the first in kind, one electron, one proton, but there is no neutron, and everything is come from this another thing. When I think of hydrogen, I can think of only Aditya, the sun only. When come to the helium 4, which are the two groups in the first periodic table, hydrogen and helium, two extremes. Helium 4 is the completely circular dot where you have two protons, two electrons and two neutrons, and that is helium 4, and incidentally that is manufactured in the sun at 6000 degree temperature, and it becomes the indwelling soul of the human beings to bring everybody to the perfect human being in tune with Sun, which is most disciplined object in the universe, which knows how to give and forgive. It does not take anything. Without hydrogen, without Sun, Aditya, life will be impossible. And similar to the truths as such to be experienced by everybody, without helium-4, the Antaratma, it will be impossible. So first two things which are important is hydrogen and helium. They are the one give you all the knowledge, and that's it. And the person who's in tune with Sun as well as Aditi is the one who will be perfect human being. He will know A to Z of the entire universe at his fingertips. That is the most important concept in Rig Veda itself, and I make it clear it is directly, indirectly, everywhere projected in Rig Veda only. Then comes to the question of other elements which are important. From the second period, first period table to the second periodic table, the three things in second periodic table are very important. That is carbon, nitrogen and oxygen. These are the ones which make a difference altogether. Hydrogen, carbon and oxygen give the carbohydrates and lipids. Hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen and oxygen give you proteins, and same hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen and phosphorus give you energy molecules. So that way is very clear. Similarly, the first molecule which stands out is again methane, water and carbon dioxide. But meantime, other elements which are there in the next periodic table is sodium, magnesium, sulfur, phosphorus, chloride, potassium, calcium, manganese, ferrous and iodine. On the whole, 2 plus 3, 5 plus 5, 10 plus 5, 15. If you take helium out, there are 14 things which play a very important role. 7 plus 7, that's it. And as I told you, the first vital molecules is methane, water and carbon dioxide. Methane has got the power of 10 protons, water has 10 protons and carbon dioxide 22, and these 10 and 22 are the integral part of Divyank alone. Then comes to the question of first vital compounds which are absolutely essentially from these things are the carbohydrate, which is glucose, fructose, etc. Then lipids, and then proteins, then ATP energy and DNA molecule. And within these products of 14 to 15, particularly 14 elements play a vital role in manufacturing carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, energy molecules and DNA double helix of the human being as such. And once that is considered, your entire periodic table, entire Rig Veda, which is understood to you as a perfect one with which you can move on. And I am making again and again, it is the Agni which is important. Reduce the Agni, it becomes water, and reduce the Agni further, it becomes solid ice. Increase the energy, you come to Vayu, and then you go to energy, and these are 5 states which are there in Rig Veda, and same thing we know, we should know to understand concept very clearly. Now coming from that, let's go to the next stage. Now comes to the spiritual sciences, the divine examples of chemistry. As I told you, the same thing which I am indicating is first thing hydrogen, carbon, oxygen as such, then helium, then methane, water and carbon dioxide. Then comes to the question of first element of hydrogen. I said is the helium, the Aditya. Everything starts from there, is maintained by that, is sustained by that. Without the sun, the life on earth will be impossible. So that is the first concept, beginning, maintained at the end as such. Second thing, as I told you, second element helium-4, Aditi or Antaratma. You can see the symbol of Aditi. You can see goddess with 2, 2 and 2. And that is Antaratma, and person who is in tune with Antaratma, that human being will never make any mistake. He'll be a truthful, honest, completely perfect human being as a Lokpal in the entire universe. That is what Aitreya Upanishad, which is a reflection of Rig Veda in Upanishad form, is talking about. If you want to be a Lokpalan, custodian, guardian, you got to stick to Aditi, and you understand Aitri Upanishad, which is reflection of Rig Veda again. Now comes to the sixth element of carbon, and I make it very clear. Lord Shiva of dissolution regeneration actually is burnt ash. So organic chemistry starts from carbon only. Elementary, inorganic, without carbon. Carbon is one which starts organic chemistry and biochemistry thereafter. So carbon plays important role as such. Then comes to the eighth element, oxygen. This is Agni which I am talking about, and Agni with Ashtbhuja means there are 8 electrons as such. These are 8 electrons are the one which give you the fire, and that is oxygen. Without oxygen there is no fire, and that is something which stands out very clearly in Rig Veda. It is oxygen, 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 8th element, and 8 Bhujadhari, that is 1, 2, 4, 8 itself starts in the same dichotomous division. Then come to the inner planets of solar system. There are 4 planets between the sun and asteroid belt which are solid terrestrial element, and I do know one thing very clearly, they all contain 97% carbon dioxide to start with, and all the 4, sun to asteroid belt, is Mercury, Venus, Mother Earth and Mars. 4 had 97% carbon before life started on Earth. Then comes to the question of, with the time, the atmosphere of the solar system changed, and let's say terrestrial element are the inner solid planets, 4 of them, and I'm going to show you certain changes which happened in the solar system atmosphere of these 4 planets, which gets reflected into human body as such, and let's understand that concept very clearly. Now come to the question of the sun. The first one is Mercury, which is the closest to the sun, which goes around almost in 30-35 days of the thing as such. Now Mercury had 97%. Now Mercury has 42% oxygen, which is double the amount of oxygen on the earth, and Mercury has 29% sodium and 22% nitrogen. These are the 3 things stand out, and remaining 7 other gases including helium, neon, argon, krypton, and I'm so astatine also must be there. Now question comes up is, why there is 42% oxygen in the Mercury, not 21, and why it is there? Number 1, direct sunlight so close with a high temperature complete the atmosphere as such into oxygen itself. That's it. And second thing is, sodium is produced first. That means it is extracellular fluid element which is going to play a very important role, and electrogenically most powerful thing after oxygen is sodium only, and it is outside, and whereas potassium is inside. Why sodium is more electrogenic than potassium, I'll talk to you as when come to that particular stage. And nitrogen is formed from carbon to this, because entire life should be so. In other words, oxygen, sodium and nitrogen play a very important role in further development. That means without nitrogen, proteins will not be there. Without sodium, extracellular fluid will not be there. Then further development comes thereafter. But let's start this. Mercury shows it. Scientists show these are the things, and I agree with that. Scientists, you are absolutely on the right. You are going to bridge the gap and make us understand the concept of Rig Veda, Aitri Upanishad and modern science as one part. Now comes to the question of science of oxygen and mercury. Mercury has 42% oxygen, as I told you, Agnibhuta. The effect of direct sunlight on mercury, and I do believe it's a condensed water or water which is converted into oxygen, as you can see in this particular picture on the left side, is a light mediated thing. Although it's a picture is of photosynthesis, but I'm talking about the process. Sunlight, water is converted into oxygen only. That is my point. So light converts water into oxygen. I think that is what must have happened in mercury. Let's take it that. Now come to the question of signs of sodium and mercury. So mercury has 29% Agnibhuta. Again, sodium has got 11 electrons and is more energetic than potassium, which has 19 electrons. Now, sodium is an extracellular fluid component, as you can see in the picture, and potassium is intracellular. So it remains outside, it has to go inside through electrogenic process only. Now comes the question, why sodium is more electrogenic than potassium? Because number of electrons in sodium are 11, 1 by 11, whereas in potassium it is 19. So imagine a bus carrying anything from any part to another part of the country carries in the process of in the any product, in lorry you call it or train you call it, anything which is lighter would move faster than which is heavier. Now you can imagine, is the sodium lighter or potassium lighter? The same process, the lighter one, which if from that angle you see, oxygen is earlier and helium is even before earlier and hydrogen even before that. So hydrogen is most important. No wonder the entire world, the maximum product available is hydrogen only, followed by helium, and I think, and then followed by oxygen and then carbon. I think that speaks volumes because Agni stands out. So similarly, sodium becomes more powerful than that, and I think once that is understood, you can see why it is extracellular, not intracellular, and more concentration outside of the sodium and very least amount inside the cell, where a potassium is inside, and that maintains the balance of intracellular, extracellular. Once that is understood, you will understand homeostasis much better, how the body functions, and this picture shows very clearly that you need ATP energy also to take hydrogen, the sodium from outside into inside. Once that is understood, I think you are clear. You need energy for that, and from that oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen and phosphate will play a role in form of ATP, and that is a picture very clear. Now comes to the question of Venus, the second after Mercury, has 96% carbon dioxide. It hasn't changed because it is quite far from Sun. It doesn't have the aura of the Sun so powerful, so it hasn't brought the kind of changes on that one side. Second thing, there is no plant tissue there that convert carbon dioxide into carbohydrate and water into oxygen. That process is not there in Venus, so it maintains. But Venus has 3% nitrogen. That means the process of forming protein was much more prominent there than you have. Now, Mercury has got 22% and here 3%. When it comes to the Earth, it is 78% nitrogen. I think that's where the inert gases again, helium, neon, argon are there. Krypton and xenon as well as strontium may or may not be there. But again, water, carbon dioxide, sulfuric acid is much more present in Venus as such. Now comes the Earth chemistry, present Mother has 21%, and I told you this is primarily because of photosynthesis, plant kingdom, and it is 78% because required for protein formation later and also the energy ATP later. So important there. Other gases are only 1% and maximum is argon 40 again. Argon 40 is the source of all the things, and I would say argon is 18 groups in the periodic table. 18 plus 18 plus 22 neutrons is argon 40, and even so called neon has come from there. So helium, argon, krypton and argon, all the things are very clear in Earth's element, and hydrogen, methane and carbon dioxide, as I told you, and the water content on the water speaks volumes in the process. Now comes the transformation of the solar system. As I told you, Mercury gets maximum direct sunlight, as a result 42% from water, and mother has 21% oxygen due to photosynthesis from water to oxygen again. And this picture again shows the same thing, how the transformation of the solar system has taken place. Now come to the question of Mars, which is the fourth in the line, has 95% carbon dioxide from 97, again has 3% nitrogen, and others are 1.5% argon, again a source for neon and other gases. So I think this whole picture is becoming very clear how nature is unfolding its secrets as such to the world, and I think that speaks volumes. Now come to the question of, again, this is how it started, and I would say this is the descent of Mahashakti or energy from the entire universe creation on the earth, and when fell into the water and that to the ocean, and everything started from warm water to the ocean thereafter, and that is where minerals become plants and then other things as such. Now the question is methane, as I told you in the very beginning, 10 protons, 6 of carbon and 4 of hydrogen put together, they represent the 10 stages of development, and that is what I am talking about, 22 by 21 to the power of 10. They are 10 stages of development and not 7 chakras and other things. That speaks volumes in methane itself. Then come to the question of water is the second most solvent water, and it is 61.803% of the water in the universe, on the earth, in the water, in the human body and the human cells has to be 61.8034. So that is the second, again 10 protons, but that makes a difference. Unless until water content is there, only the life starts only with that. Without water content there is no life. Everything will be dry without water, and that is reason water content on the earth is 61.8%, and that is the point. And that amount of water is not there on Mercury, not in Venus, not in Mars, or not anywhere else. That is uniformly only on earth, and once you understand, and that exactly what is Divek talking about. 61.8034 water, 38.1966% solid element. That is a principle which is applied everywhere. So that's where the uniformity comes only with Divek, and that's it. And only water can bring all the changes A to Z. Even so-called acid-base balance is also associated with water as the two molecules, hydrogen positive, OH negative. Positive and negative as such can differentiate the whole acid-base balance and also every product. So water becomes important. Now the third in the process, methane, water and the carbon dioxide. But now you see the combination which comes thereafter. Methane has got 1 carbon and 3 as a 10, and 4 oxygen have 32, 8 into 4. Water has got 2, again same thing, plus oxygen, and then they produce carbon dioxide with the 22. You can see the methane plus water is equivalent to carbon dioxide plus water again. So methane plus oxygen is equivalent to carbon dioxide. This is a whole process we started, and the same process which I am showing in Divyank as a 22 by 21. Carbon is 20, carbon dioxide 22, and methane and that's 10, and so the process starts thereafter. Now comes to the question of divine drama of the nature, which I will try to show you. The creation carbohydrates and oxygen, creation of lipids with lesser oxygen content, I will explain to you later. But the first thing which photosynthesis did, 6 molecules of carbon dioxide plus 6 molecules of water put together in the light of sun in the plant kingdom produce 1 molecule called glucose and 6 molecules of oxygen. That's what made carbon dioxide change in the presence of water into oxygen, and that became essential for biological life for every living being. And without oxygen, absolute oxygen and glucose concentration is, that's what I explained. The human brain uses 25 to 25% of glucose and oxygen. In my case, the person who is very intelligent, very intuitive, uses the brain very effectively for 22 minutes, concentration on one subject completely. that man can use up to 40% of the glucose and oxygen. Maybe oxygen you can go even up to 61% effectively. Once come to that stage, it could get tired because of maybe lactic acid or pyruvic acid and the process it could be. But the fact is, this is what is important in mathematics, which helps you to give optimum use as such on the earth. Now come to the question of sodium chloride. Sodium has 11 protons and chloride has 17. Now this ratio of 17 and 11 is Deviank. 17 divided by 11 is equal to 1.618034. Again, that is Deviank ratio. Sodium has 10 protons like neon 21. Chloride has 18 electrons like argon 40. That's again helium like is neon 10, argon they start become like antaratma. If the antaratma is helium 4, same thing sodium can become like neon and chloride can like argon. As a result, the periodic table will be very important. So sodium could remain becomes an extracellular product and it has power of 10 and 11 and 18 as such to give you the process. Then these elements themselves become energy molecules in the body and can give you all the experience what Rigved and Aitreya Upanishad is talking about. Once that is understood, I think we can go very well to the next stage of potassium chloride. Potassium has 18 electrons like argon 40. Chloride has also 18 electrons. I am talking about ions. I am not talking of atoms. And 18, that means both are like argon. So you come to the periodic table completely with potassium and chloride. And let me make one thing very clear. I want every scientist to understand ions are only because of water. There is no water, there are no ions. It's only they will convert electrons into ionic form in the presence of water. Once that is water, 61.8034, all the concepts which in chemistry are used in Nernst equation will be understood only when you understand the importance of water on the earth and water inside, and all the chemical changes only because of water. And I think if anybody understands that will know very well. So potassium resembles an inert matter argon. As a result, complete periodic table divine thing comes to an end there. Other elements would play a role which we'll see as we move on to that. But this is what it is all about. After once this is understood, we can go very well to this, that Rigved is talking about atom, elements, molecules, compounds, cells and energy to A to Z Panchabhutas. And once that is understood, you can understand chemistry much better, organic chemistry better, biochemistry better, and then human body even better, because you got to experience all that within your human body as such. Now coming to the last picture, everything is represented in the same form. Once you understand, you experience that, you understand Ida, Pingla, Sushmana, everything is this. We will go to that as we proceed. Anyway, thank you very much. Thanks.